everybody. As long as we let people access this virtual room, I would start saying hello. My name is Chiara Lucchini. I'm one of the two experts that is accompanying one of the two projects that are the protagonists of today's webinar. The other expert that is here with me is Ileana Toscano. So we both are experts in culture and cultural heritage, and we have been accompanying two interesting projects. The first one, CAMINA in Almeria, and the second one that is Cultural Hydrant in Halandri. So we have Greece and Spain as the protagonists of today's workshop. We are very happy that we managed to have this shared moment today because well, we already had occasions to discuss and to exchange, but it's very important and very significant for us today to have the chance to discuss about these two projects that are coming to their completion and that have quite interesting points in common. So that's why we were imagining as the title for this workshop, this Engage, Activate and Procure, with the idea of putting together not only interesting activities and examples and experiences that are related to culture and cultural heritage, but also with the idea that we would like to explore how through culture and cultural heritage we can have an impact, we can be very concrete, we can really promote change at local level. I will go briefly through today's agenda. If Ileana, you can skip to the next slide, just to let you know which is our program for today. You know that this meeting is being recorded, and we will make the recording available in the European Urban Initiative communication tools and in the pages that are dedicated to the two projects. So very quickly, we will have an introduction by Nelida Anco-Herrera and Re.N.T. that are from the that come from the EUI Secretariat, and that will explain also why this workshop is in which way this workshop is related to an activity that will come further on at the end of September. We will have the participation of Jan Schultheis, which is one of the persons in charge of the Culture and Cultural Heritage Partnership of the European Urban Agenda for the EU. Jan will not be able to join us today, but he was preparing a video message for us, so he will provide us quite a wide framing of cultural participation in EU cities, and this will help us also putting the two study cases that we will discuss today in a larger framework. Then we will get into an active conversation on CAMINA after an introduction of the main topics of the workshop. After that, we will focus our attention on cultural hydrants, so we will have the time and the chance to really go in depth into the content and into the activity that were developed through the two projects. And then we will have a final, hopefully nice and funny interactive exercise that will help us wrap up and let the key concepts and lessons learned emerge. Don't go away after that. We will have a final 5 minutes that are dedicated to the city-to-city exchange program from the EUI Secretariat. So we thought that this would be quite an interesting opportunity also for our audience to follow that and to get to know more about that. So I would ask Ileana to move on with the presentation and leave the floor to Nelida and Re.N.T.
Good morning, everyone. Thank you for joining us today as we indeed pretend to engage, activate, procure with this international webinar to share and disseminate the results of these two projects funded under our fifth call of proposals, the previous generation of the current initiative we have, which was named Urban Innovative Actions Initiative. CAMINA from the city of Almeria, Spain, and Cultural Hy.D.R.A.N.T from Halandri, Greece. My name is Nelida Anco-Herrera, and today I will join this event on behalf of the Permanent Secretary of the European Urban Initiative, and that had the pleasure to support both of these projects between 2020 and 2024. The idea today is to walk you through these two cases, two study cases, focusing on the way they implemented the innovative policies and public procurement practices for different European urban cities, while at the same time ensuring citizens' participation, inclusion of vulnerable groups, and unexpected stakeholders into what was cultural heritage solutions or approaches they proposed. CAMINA was conceived to reconnect with the deprived heritage sites with the rest of the city, recognizing the value of a common understanding of the past and the present by co-writing the novel collaborative city narrative as a starting point for co-creating an inclusive and just future for the local population. They do have included many other activities and actions. Among the concrete ones, we have the cultural road as well that they proposed and that they put in place, and some other pilot investments as part of their solution. While cultural HI.D.RA.N.T from Greece, they work to discover or rediscover the historic Andrian aqueduct. The city saw a unique opportunity to reuse this and included 4 urban regeneration sites along the aqueduct's route. The water will be used to irrigate public spaces and private gardens. How cultural heritage can also offer environmental, but also social benefits. So I would like, and on behalf of the Secretariat, to invite as well all attendees of this international webinar and any urban practitioner around the topic of leveraging culture and cultural heritage for positive urban change to the EU first policy lab of the urban initiative that is going to happen on the 26th and 27th of September in Halandri, Greece, where we will have the possibility to discuss the transformative power of culture and heritage in cities, capture evidence-based urban stories, network with the different other urban practitioners in this field, working as well as part of the urban agenda in the EU partnership, other urban innovative action cities, potentially other EU-wide cities as well, urban networks, and many more others. No? Please register using the QR code that it is being presented in the slide. Thank you very much. I wish you a great webinar today so we can all work and get to learn all the results that these two projects have delivered as part of our pilots. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Nelida. I would just leave the floor, at least virtually, to Mr. Schultheis with his video. I would just remind you what Ileana was writing in the chat. So if some of you have any question concerning anything that is going to be presented today, we would invite you to write it in the chat. We will collect the questions. If you feel like also leaving us your contact, feel free to do that. We will make good use of it. Just in order to make your participation more comfortable, just let us know if there's anything specific you want to know. We will be very happy to answer you. So I would just start with the video. Here we go.
Hi and hello. Nice to meet you. Thank you very much for the invitation. And I'm truly sorry that I cannot be with you today, but I would like to give you a brief overview on the partnership on culture and cultural heritage in the urban agenda for the EU. My name is Jan Schultheis. I'm at the Federal Ministry for Housing, Urban Development and Building in Berlin, Germany, and I will try to start my presentation now. I hope it will all work out. I am doing this together with our Italian colleagues who also coordinated the partnership. What is really characteristic for the urban agenda for the EU? What is unique is that it deals with current topics of the European city. On the left side, you see the the old partnerships, many of which have stopped working. One of the partnerships that is actually still continuing to work is the one on culture and cultural heritage. On the right side, you see the new generation, for instance, on sustainable tourism, and the two ones on the bottom are starting late this year, early next year. What is truly unique about the urban agenda are two things. One of them is that it is about exploring new strategies, developing new tools. It's not about doing something that's already been done. And the second really characteristic point is that it is a multi-level approach, meaning members of the European Commission, of the member states, and especially the cities sit at the same table and discuss relevant issues. And they do this in the three areas of better regulation, better funding, and better knowledge exchange. This, in a way, was our homework to come up with new insights about these three areas. Here you can see, here you can see the partnership composition. In our case, culture and cultural heritage. You can see it's a rather broad membership from all over Europe, although of course we fell in the middle of the pandemic, so some members were more active than others. So now what did we actually do? The starting point for our partnership was the Year of Cultural Heritage in 2018. This is when colleagues of mine decided it's really worthwhile to have an in-depth European exchange on various issues relating to culture and cultural heritage, because there were truly gaps of knowledge and the insight that it's better to start a conversation. In the very beginning, members of the partnership, we did a typical SWOT analysis and looked very specifically at the greatest needs in the field where we need to look more closely, where we need to develop what is called an action in the urban agenda. And here you can see the 11 actions that we developed and worked on in more detail. And I will present to you some of them, not all of them, because you can read about them online. So for instance, the first action, action number 1, looked at the recent phenomenon of the sharing economy. You might know companies like Airbnb, and the goal of this action was to tackle problems of gentrification and touristification of cities as a result of these short-term rental platforms. Action number 2 developed a number of cultural activities in the public domain that aimed to reconquer public spaces and to promote cultural consumption. In addition, the action aims to develop a model to reactivate the culture and cultural sectors in times of crises by cultural procurements. Action number 3 constituted a platform to strengthen artistic production and innovation, improving working conditions and promoting a structural framework for self-employed artists, granting them space for cultural productions and promoting participation and transparency in cultural management. Action number 4 focused on social innovation and developed an approach for integrated rehabilitation of deprived urban areas by offering social and cultural services. In the end, it developed an open source guideline to foster collaborative management practices in cities of different sizes. Action number 7 aimed to help balance tourist flows, to strike a balance between a too much and overcrowded of destinations and sites that get too few tourists. So this action aimed to balance tourist flows, to increase the quality of cultural experiences and a better quality of life for the local population by using data to steer tourists using an app. Then you see 3 actions that have a circle around them. I circled them because I know them in more detail, because they're led by various German members. One of them is the Berlin Senate, and actions 8 and 10 were led by me and our colleagues at our Federal Institute. One of them deals with public libraries and their new role. And the second one in the middle deals with the intersection of heritage and risk management. And here you see a recent example of a flood in a historic city. And the one on the right is the action number 10, dealing with integrated approaches to dissonant heritage. And just to give you some insights, some examples of some of the outputs of the actions. Action number 5, the one on public libraries, aimed to raise visibility for the topic and the need for further discourse. And in the work plan for culture, of the Council of the EU, a OMC group, an expert group, was put into place that will look into this in much more detail. So that's a concrete outcome of the urban agenda. In action number 8, in heritage and risk management, we produced 2 publications, one in English, a guidance paper, one in German, a handbook. You can find them on the link that I provide on the bottom. And we are currently working on a practice check of this handbook, because we really want to be sure that it helps those local stakeholders dealing with these subjects. And we have an action group that works on these issues. It's a group of networks dealing with resilience that is still working and ongoing. And if any of you are interested, just let me know. I'm happy to include you on our list. Action number 10, integrated approaches to dissonant heritage. We worked on a orientation paper which really gives an overview of about 40 dissonant heritage sites and different approaches to this heritage. You can also go to our website, dissonant-heritage.eu. Here as well, we have an action group of networks dealing with these issues. We meet about every 8 weeks online. We are currently working on a toolbox for the local level, because it's really those stakeholders on site who we feel would benefit from this work. The toolbox will be published next year in German and English, and it will be open source in case anybody would like to translate it. There are various synergies of this action. For instance, there is a new URBACT city network called Architects Dissonant European Heritage as Labs of Democracy. And there's also a EU-funded project on communicating dissonance. Maybe just one last thought that might be useful as a recommendation, because to us it's really important to go beyond the bubble of the urban agenda into local practice, into national practice. So it's really a translation process, a knowledge transfer process, to make sure that those who should use the results and the recommendations, that they can actually use it. And we, in our case, did 3 workshops to ensure this knowledge transfer. Here you can find my email address and also the Urban Agenda website with more information. Thank you very much for your attention, and I wish you a very successful workshop.
Okay, so after this first introduction by Mr. Schultheis, we will proceed then in putting in the chat the links he was showing because they were not active in the presentation. So we will do it straight away for those ones who were asking for that. Well, as you could argue and understand from this initial presentation, well, the potential framework is very broad, and I would say we might have many different frameworks that we could use this morning to discuss these two projects. So I would briefly go through actually the reflection Ileana and I had on how to structure this moment of discussion and presentation, and I hope this would help to better clarify what is the angle that we would like to provide you over these two experiences that we will be going through today. So first of all, the first thing that we really wanted to put over the table to offer you for this conversation is one possible approach to culture and cultural heritage policies that sees that as a tool to expand civic engagement. We will see it in the two projects. There is a lot of work that was done by Almeria and by Halandri in trying to activate unexpected stakeholders into the urban political process, engaging them into conversations that wouldn't be the traditional or ordinary kind of conversations about the public realm, the common good, and by talking about unexpected stakeholders, we might talk about a variety of different kind of groups. So we might talk about people that wouldn't normally take part to the urban political process because maybe they have no interest or no they have no, and they had never participated, and so they don't know they could take part, and that they might have a power of voice. But on the other side of the spectrum, we might have categories and groups and groups of people in the city that are normally set apart, that are normally not so much taken into account for this kind of processes. So as a first focus that we offer to you today, let's try and see culture and cultural heritage policies as an opportunity to expand civic engagement. And then we will see through the two projects in which way and towards which kind of categories Almeria and Halandri were working on. You can go to the next slide, Ileana, if you want. So we were talking about groups and communities and different kind of populations that we have in our cities. The way in which we engage them is key. It is very important. And you will see through both projects that there are many ways that they were taking care of very specific aspects that are specific because they are local. So acting locally, acting contextually is key on the one side, and then focus on people's networks, interconnections, so understanding what's there on the ground. It proved as very important in the case of both cities. So knowing very well and trying to know even more about our local context is key in order to start a process of engagement of communities or of strengthening of the level of engagement of communities. So there are many ways, just go back for a while, sorry. There are many ways in which this can be done, and this focus on how to engage communities intercept different levels. So this might have to do with a wider opening of the decision-making process. So we will see it in particular in the case of Halandri. This has very much to do with the democratic process. Participation is important, not because we ask people what they want, but also because they can take the stage, they can have a voice. This has to do with the way we plan things. This has to do with the way we design and manage together the use of collective spaces and services. So this again is very important for us to discuss today, because you will see that our municipal authorities were very much taking the stage from this point of view. You can go to the next one. Thank you. there is another level, and Jan was talking about that, mentioning the fact that the urban agenda for the EU is a wide framework, and it needs to intercept the practical dimension, the localized dimension of practices, of projects, of things happening in the city. So both cities in this morning's webinar put in place extremely concrete actions that have to do with urban regeneration processes that just go back, that have to do with establishing a relationship between the tangible and intangible components of cultural heritage. This is very important, and you will see it unfolded into the two presentations, and also again, imagining that the activation of communities not only has to do with participation, but it really has to do with making things together, designing things together, imagining things together, and then finally managing things, spaces, services together in the city. Then the final slide that is how to have an impact. So in both cases, and this is very much embedded, I would say, into the UIA, now EUI kind of actions, that is that not only there is an interesting theoretical framework, but also that as we come to practice, we need to understand how to have an impact, in which way to be effective and produce effective action in the city. So both projects in very different ways have worked on imagining new administrative tools, new roles inside the management of cultural heritage in the city. In some cases, they were designing new institutions, new ways of managing the public good. And in this framework, the public procurement processes, the way in which I would say the tool that cities and municipal authorities have in their hands to become impactful, to really produce a change, public procurement has a role, and the way in which public procurement processes are designed can mark the difference. So this is extremely important, and we hope this will emerge from the presentation of our two projects today, because finally the perspective that both projects try to bring into the conversation, into this discussion, is how to make the city a common good. I would thank you for the attention. We will continue feeding the chat. I see it quite dense already. I'm happy about that. And I would leave the floor to Ileana to continue with this series of presentation.
Thank you, Chiara, and good morning, everybody. I have the great pleasure to share with you some of the results developed by the project CAMINA, Community Awakening for Multicultural Integrative Narrative of Almeria in Spain. And together with me today, there are Gabriela Sanchez Calvete from Cora Urban Thinkers, which is one of the delivery partners of the project, and Cristina Martin Eras from ETISA, another delivery partner of CAMINA. Unfortunately, Jose Antonio Camacho Olmedo from the Municipality of Almeria couldn't be here today, and he would like to say hello to everybody and wish you a good meeting. But let's go on about CAMINA. So this is just a picture about the city of Almeria, which is really beautiful, just in front of the sea, and you can just have a first impression of the cultural heritage we have in Almeria. The goal of the projects is really ambitious, and CAMINA is wanted to propose an holistic initiative that is aimed to rediscovering the values of culture and cultural heritage and the positive effects it has in social integration of three neighborhoods, La Chanca Pescaderia, Almedina, and the center. These three neighborhoods that here we can see in an old picture represent the splendor past of the city. But nowadays, some of them are deprived, underused, and not so well used from the other citizens. So the city of Almeria would like to invert this situation and want to take the challenge to try to go back life and activation in these 3 neighborhoods through a cultural participative methodology for achieving this goal. And we have several elements that were put in place to do that, because it was really ambitious. First of all, I want to remember that we have 3 neighborhoods, 3 districts that are also close each other and close to the city of Almeria, and that they represent the cultural heritage of the city. Together with these 3 neighborhoods, we have also 3 cultural landscapes in Almeria. One of them is the Muslim Alcazaba, just behind these 3 neighborhoods. In the other side, we have the old seaport of Almeria, and we also have the Italiano realism cultural movement that was really important for the city of Almeria. For activated citizens, for reactivating these 3 neighborhoods, also 3 cultural nodes were put in place that are the Maison Gitano, that represent also one of the cultural arts in Almeria, that is the music and the flamenco in particular. We have the Doña Paquita Museum, where several fine arts exhibitions are shared with the citizens, and we have the Cinema Katiuska in La Chanca Pescaderia. These 3 cultural nodes are located in the 3 neighborhoods we want to activate. And the Cinema Katiuska also is willing to represent another important cultural heritage we have in Almeria, that is dealing with the cinema shooting. Indeed, several movies were shot in Almeria. Some of them are dealing with the spaghetti western that I think that many of you knows. And together with that, we have 3 forms of arts that were involved in this process: the fine arts, the performative arts, and the audio-visual arts. For trying to reactivate these 3 neighborhoods, the project CAMINA also developed a cultural circular road to transform this area in an open-air city museum. And here we can see a summary of the project elements and the most important results that CAMINA achieved. First of all, a novel collective narrative of the city in order to bring together all the cultures, all the voices in this narrative. One circular road was designed to reactivate these 3 neighborhoods, and the 3 cultural nodes were reactivated and also refurbished. But one of the most important innovation was the civic curators tool. Indeed, 6 laboratories for culture were set up to co-design cultural programs and to co-realize cultural events. And thanks to this work, about 30 events were delivered in the city between August 2023 and February 2024. But now we can have the opportunity to learn more about it. As I told you, one of the most important things was to co-create a novel city narrative about Almeria through a sound participatory process. But why it was decided to do that? The acronym CAMINA in Spanish means walk. And the approach we wanted to promote in the city was a slow approach of participation that allowed to take the time to stay in the 3 neighborhoods, to meet the people and to build with them a relationship, to build in trust between the delivery partners and the local communities, the citizens, and last but not least, the municipality of Almeria. This novel collective narrative that matched together the expertise stories, the history from the experts, from historians, together with the common story of the people living in these 3 neighborhoods, represents one of the cultural intangible heritage we have in the city, and track the path to entering again in these 3 neighborhoods, especially the most deprived one, which is La Chanca Pescaderia. So the novel collective narrative connected feelings needs, people, neighborhoods, city imagination, future, present, and past of the city of Almeria to build a common cultural landscape, to start a new path for creating culture and cultural heritage in the present. But it was not, it was the milestone of the project and the foundation element, but not just the one. It was the starting point, because the delivery partners of CAMINA is also wanted also to experiment and to provide a concrete and tangible path in the city, and to experiment this narrative, the two so-called civic curators was put in place to trigger a concrete transformation and to give the opportunity to the city to concretely participate in this process of transformation, starting from culture and cultural heritage. But what are these civic curators? The civic curator is an innovative concept promoted by CAMINA that involved cultural users, local or association, local organization, and also citizens, individuals and professionals to co-design together a novel cultural program of Almeria, starting from the lesson learned from the novel collective narrative that was the foundation element, and also to feed the project developed by the civic curators, and to co-create and co-realizing together cultural initiatives. The civic curators were active between March 2023 and February 2024. In December 2022, the call for participants was launched to involve the people to participate in these civic curators. 22 participants participated, but just 12 candidates were selected, and they were matched in 6 cultural projects, in 6 cultural groups, in 6 civic curators groups that were divided in 3 types of categories, matching the cultural heritage, the intangible heritage we have in CAMINA, the fine arts, the performative arts, and the audiovisual arts. But linking to the speech of Chiara, and the reason why CAMINA is so close to HI.D.RA.N.T is also because we have this procurement innovation for preparing this call for participants to launch the concept of civic curators. Indeed, generally, the public procurement for culture and cultural heritage events is launched to call cultural proposal where budget include project and realization of well-described artistic or cultural interventions. In the case of CAMINA, the municipality of Almeria, together with the delivery partners, did an effort to transform this public procurement and to launch this call for involving participants that are engaged and paying for working together in a participative way through the methodology of the social laboratory for co-designing the cultural programs and then co-realizing together. Another innovation was that not just cultural association and organizations were able to participate, but also individuals, artists, cultural passionate were involved in the process. The total budget for this activity was about 234,000 euros, and participants could apply as individuals with a budget of 13,000 euros or as a working group with a budget of 39,000 euros. And now we can see some of the results, some of the products of this civic curator. The civic curator number 1 was facilitated by the delivery partner, the Foundation of Art, Ibáñez Cosentino, and worked together with another local organization, and they deliver some urban walks, among other activities they prepare. And this urban walks was called Mujeres Caminos, and it was co-realized by a community of artist women around La Chanca Pescaderia neighborhood, which is one of the most deprived neighborhoods we have between the three of them. And the other activity really important to continue this participatory work with the cultural organization was the preparation of a web page to map the cultural organization, the artists, the cultural experts, the practitioners of Almeria, to empower the collaboration and the participation between cultural stakeholders. Then we have the civic curator number 2, facilitated by the Junta de Andalucía, together with the local organization and an artist, and they realize a multicultural chorale with street performances, and also the first concert of the Chorale Foundation. They also develop a podcast, so-called Audio Barrio project, with 16 audio tracks corresponding to 16 top stops in the neighborhood that were inspired by the story of the people living these neighborhoods. We have the civic curator number 3, facilitated by the Music School for Music and Arts, together with other 2 local organizations, and they realized a dance performance with video mapping installation about the Indaliano movement, but also they involve several people with this format really engaging, especially for the young population, so-called Camina Urbano. That was an urban performative exhibition that involved several dance performers of hip-hop, freestyles, and other forms of art. For doing that, they also realized a casting that was so well participated and was able to engage many of the local population, especially the youngest. The civic curator number 4, facilitated by Coover, the audio video producer, and other local organization about theater and performances, realized a theater and dance and music performance inspired by the milestone achieved thanks to this process, and especially about the history of Almeria. And they also realized a short video documentary about the ancient Almeria named Las Tres Medinas. The civic curator number 5, facilitated by the Diputación de Almería, together with two local organizations and 2 professionals, developed this training really fascinating for school students about cinema and video making. But they also realized a route with 6 urban street art performances in La Chanca Pescaderia neighborhood, where they printed some posters of actors from Almeria involved in the industry of cinema. And talking about the industry of cinema, which is one of the cultural heritage we have in Almeria, the civic curator number 5 prepared also an archive that is physical and also online of images collected from the people living in La Chanca Pescaderia neighborhood, especially that were involved in the cinema industry and also in the movies as actors. The civic curator number 6, last but not least, facilitated by the Junta de Andalucía, especially the Center of Photography, together with another local organization specialized in photography. They realized this training for citizens on photography using their mobile devices. That was also facilitated by a professional photographer that was also exhibited in an exhibition of photography in the walls and the facade of the 3 target districts we have in CAMINA. Last but not least, CAMINA also refurbished some of the 3, especially the Cinema Katiuska, of the 3 cultural nodes, the Cinema Katiuska, the Maison Gitano, and the Museum Doña Paquita. For the Cinema Katiuska, it was provided a strong investment for refurbish this building. In the Museum Doña Paquita was created a new room for exhibition, while in the Maison Gitano we just forecasted to create a virtual reality to have the impression to stay again in the past of the ancient Almeria. So the message, the last message from CAMINA is that culture could be made by the people, for the people, and this is the most maybe innovative and the most needed culture we need, especially if we want to involve the local population, the young people, and the excluded people, especially in the production of cultural programs. And now to follow up about some of the concepts proposed by CAMINA, I want to share one of the main questions we have in the process, that is how the participative process to design the narrative that was the foundation element of the project contribute to include in the project also the unexpected people. And for answering this question, I would like to invite with us Gabriella from Cora Urban Thinkers, and I kindly ask her to share some thoughts, because Cora Urban Thinkers was the responsible for this activity. This was really important to engage local population, to involve vulnerable groups, especially the most excluded ones. And I would like to ask to Gabriella some insights about this really important step.
Okay, thank you, Ileana and Chiara, for the invitation to such an interesting event. To answer your question, I would like to say that the process of building a new cultural narrative of the city has been key in including misrepresented population like ethnic minorities, migrants, but it also included recognized experts in the culture and history of Almeria who don't usually show up. Since the team applied a mixed top-down and also a bottom-up methodology. The process was top-down because the main cultural representatives from all the disciplines have been on board since the beginning of the project. Journalists, historians, musicians, art teachers, and they jointly built a bank of stories through innovative facilitation workshops and meetings. But the process was also a bottom-up exercise made through an exhaustive fieldwork to get to know the whole cultural fabric of the three neighborhoods, hidden artists, unknown or new civic and artistic initiatives, and unregistered stories of the neighborhoods. This information was gathered in a map representing everyone in the cultural scene: rappers, graffiti painters, flamenco fusion dancers, and also YouTubers, for example. In summary, the new narrative combines traditional history and new artistic manifestations, fiction and real stories, to inspire inclusive and appealing new cultural performance, past with present and recognized cultural representatives mixed with alternative artistic assets. Also, the narrative fed the civic curator, as you already said, and the narrative is now being spread to the population in Almeria by the following channels: a document, cultural roots, cards, and an infographic. The document includes different creative concepts, as you already explained us, Ileana. Curatorial topics, a manifesto with a citizen decalogue of common attributes, cultural landscapes, and historical and artistic values, framing new cultural manifestations as the foundations toward a new cultural agenda and narrative. Also, the cultural roots are based on the stories from the bank and link cultural heritage sites, popular cultural scenes, and the three cultural nodes. They combine facts and fiction stories to encourage people to visit the three neighborhoods, breaking the current physical and psychological barriers between them. Tourist guides were also trained to perform the routes to the inhabitants of Almeria. Also, the cards represent and describe relevant places and characters in the Almeria's culture of today and yesterday. There are 45 different ones, and they can be interchangeable and also collectible. And the last one layout of the narrative is the infographic that represents the new narrative in a traditional but a very visual way. And it will be placed in the 3 cultural notes. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Gabriella, for sharing this important information dealing with the preparation of the narrative that was really important, was the foundation element of the whole project of CAMINA. And now I would like to ask to Cristina from EFTISA, which is another delivery partner of the project responsible for facilitating the civic curators process, and I would like to ask her the most important lesson learned from this innovative tool that we share something about it before.
Thank you, and thanks to all for inviting. I'm happy to share and learn from your project also. Well, I will say that the most the co-creation process itself, it has been the most important one. The relationship created among the cultural network, people who have been part of the process and now keep working together. Most of them have realized the great advantages of working and co-creating as a team among different sectors, like public institution, associative network, companies from cultural sector, cultural center, like the cultural node. So the collaborative work and the mixture of different knowledge and skill have a result of cultural projects. Ileana, you mentioned some example of this cultural project that really, thanks to that co-creation process, have had a greater impact, which was the aim of the project. So it's worth to mention that in Almeria, culture was usually produced and created from public institutions and in a more individual way. So it didn't match with that leitmotif you mentioned, Ileana, in the presentation, culture made by people for people. So in short, the most important lesson learned has been the co-creation, the collaboration for cultural creation. Thanks.
Yeah, many thanks, Cristina. I think, yeah, I believe the saying that one of the most innovative part of CAMINA was to prepare this strong participatory approach in every phases of the project. So from the starting point for co-creating this narrative, and then as a really concrete tool to also prepare the cultural programs, and also it was a good framework to include in the process the unexpected audience, but not just the audience, the unexpected participants as cultural producers. That was really, really important for CAMINA. And last question for both of you, from Gabriella and Cristina. I just would like to ask you in one sentence, from your point of view, from your personal perspective, if you can share the most successful aspect of CAMINA, in your opinion. So, Gabriella, can you start, please?
Okay, Ileana. Well, that's a difficult question. But first of all, I would like to share with you a short anecdote to answer. One of the CAMINA events consisted in the making of short films by student groups from the high schools in the project area. In the framework of this activity, the organizers held meetings with the young people from the different schools who had developed the same role in order to share how they had experienced the same process. As a result of these meetings, new friendships have emerged between people from different neighborhoods, because they came together as a result of a specific shared experience. And through this, they have discovered that they have much more in common than they thought. Extending this anecdote to the whole project, I believe that CAMINA has given Almeria a common ground for its citizens to recognize each other as equals. And this common ground is culture. And I believe that this is the starting point for the dissolution of the segregation process between these neighborhoods.
Thank you very much for this emotional insights you share with us. So I just would like to ask to Cristina if she can share some of the thoughts she has.
Yeah, I agree with my colleague Gabriela. It's a very difficult sentence to summarize a project, a very complex project in a sentence, but I will try my best. In my opinion, CAMINA is culture, CAMINA is identity, CAMINA is action, and CAMINA is integration. So the project allow, or in my opinion, the successful aspect is that the project has allowed to connect cultural and social groups to cooperate and to break down barrier. As Ileana just started at the beginning of the presentation, there are no physical barriers because the neighbors are next one to the other, but there are psychical, invisible barriers. And I think the project has achieved to allow some groups that participate in the project to break down that barrier, that mental barrier.
Yeah, many thanks also to Cristina for sharing this. I think that, CAMINA is a good example of trying to put in practice the idea of the social cohesion, especially to bring culture in the deprived neighborhoods, in deprived districts, and to give the opportunity also to vulnerable groups to be active in the preparation of the cultural products and to be also one of the participants of the cultural products that then are produced. And again, to integrate the neighborhoods that are excluded from the life of the city, to bring again together and to make a step back to co-create a common ground, a common, not just the narrative, but a common background that we can feel to be equal in the same city. If it doesn't matter which neighbor we belong to. And so thank you so much for this space for CAMINA. And now I am also really happy to give the floor again to my colleague Chiara and to Cultural Hydrant, that maybe you will directly share the presentation. So
yes, if you want to show just this slide, then I will leave the power of managing the presentation to our friends from Alandri. So thanks a lot for this interesting presentation to Ileana, to Cristina and Gabriela. There were many things really stimulating and really feeling like talking about this for weeks at least. What I found specifically really important or interesting is the fact that the managing authority is acting as a change maker, and that's and the managing authority, in order to act as a change maker, acts transforming the tools that are the typical tools for a managing authority that sometimes are just seen as bureaucratic, institutional, boring, complicated, while instead acting on the tool, acting on the mechanism, acting on the process can really unfold different kind of outputs and can really prove that how to say, it can produce uneven kind of effects, and that's what CAMINA was showing. Actually, as far as instead the Cultural Hydrant project is concerned, well, today the conversation we are going to have will engage Stefania Giftopoulou, Christos Giovanopoulou, and Kostas Gerontimatos. The three of them are from the municipality of Alandri, but the partnership is well represented also in the audience today. I see many of them in the list of participants. Actually, what we were discussing about for this presentation was, as in the case of CAMINA, we cannot really present everything, even if both projects are made of so many different pieces. What we did was to discuss and to explore mainly two aspects that are very connected to what we listen to right now. So on the one side, well, in the case of Alandri, the effort was in the establishment of a new community that was established around water culture. So it's establishing a community, but it's also establishing a new kind of culture in the city that is related to a piece of cultural heritage, that is related to shared memories, but that also needed to be, let's say, let emerge, or needed to be discovered or rediscovered by the local actors. So part of the presentation will be, of course, introducing the project, focusing on how this community was built and which were, I would say, the ambassadors or the key actors that were engaged since from the very beginning in order to expand the effect of this community, but also how the engagement of the local actors was used in order to design a new service, to co-design it together, to make it possible together. And then finally, again, going back to the tools that a municipal authority can use in order to produce some sort of change, then how this process of gathering the actors, imagining the services, establishing a new kind of culture, then how this is made effective and concrete by the establishment of a new institution, the establishment of a new service that is going to serve the local system of stakeholders. So I would leave the floor to Stefania, Christos, and Kostas, and invite, of course, the audience to write down their questions if they have curiosities or if they want to get more in depth into the details of the project.
Thank you, Chiara. I will start with a brief presentation of the project overall, and then I will pass the floor to my colleagues to deep dive to the questions you just mentioned. So during the past years, the city of Halandri has become the main marketplace and retail center of North Athens. Such development exercises unmanageable pressure on the city's resources and on its urban and natural environment. But a city cannot be just that. The biggest and most important monument in Halandri is the Hadrian Aqueduct. Connecting our past to the present would serve as a counterbalance to the management of the city. Thus, our goal was to create a relation between the ancient monument and the city's everyday life, with its water as the ambassador. The project utilizes the Hadrian Aqueduct as a means to restore some of these lost qualities, to increase the quality of life and the sense of belonging, and to showcase a different and more complex model of sustainable urban development, avoiding a touristic and sightseeing approach. So how did we do that? The solution. To do so, the project revitalizes this Roman age infrastructure as 1, historical landmark and local memory, 2, as a means for green and blue urban regeneration, 3, as circular and sustainable management of its unexploited water resource, and 4, as a means for citizen participation and community building. Its innovation lies in its attempt to shift cultural heritage management via this cross-sectoral and integrated approach, in the fact that it has a use value, we use its water again, and in the fact that it's integrated into everyday life. And this would have not been possible without the collaborative governance model where the city, experts, and communities work together from the very beginning, both in the design phase, but also in the management of common cultural, natural, and urban assets. So number one, historical landmark and local memory. The Hadrian Aqueduct re-emerges as historical site, enhancing Halandri's cultural significance and branding vis-a-vis the central Athens heritage map. So along the aqueduct's big history, its local memories and relations are highlighted, avoiding, as I said before, the touristic sightseeing approach. The first digital local archive with citizen-generated content served this purpose. And a local history archive group is established to keep the work that has been done alive and further spread its initiatives in the city. Last but not least, an educational toolkit is developed to be used in schools. Number two, the aqueduct as green and blue urban regeneration. 4 neighborhoods change shape in the larger urban regeneration of the city. So in total, 21,500 square meters are being regenerated. The route of the underground monument is made visible again. Numerous of suitable new trees and plants, water on the surface of the city, pavements made of permeable materials, and new green corridors connecting the neighborhood to the city center. Elements that also, due to the climate crisis, now constitute guidelines for urban redevelopments in cities. And number three, the aqueduct as circular and sustainable water management. The project constructs a 5 kilometers new network for non-drinkable water to deliver water both to households, but also public spaces for irrigation and cleaning purposes. Additionally, households that are far from the network receive water via 2 municipal trucks. The water cycle in this way is accelerated by local use, saving 10,000 cubic meters of drinkable water per year and 25,000 cubic meters water in total per year. And this is possible because of the way the aqueduct works. So it also absorbs water. So the more you use the aqueduct, the more you use its water, the more it refills to be able to reuse it. And it's important to note that until today, the water is thrown in the sea. Last but not least, the aqueduct that's as citizen participation and community building. I will stop here and pass to my colleague Christos to continue with this.
Hello, everyone. So, citizen participation has been a core property of Cultural Hydrant since the beginning. And has many different aspects. As Stefania said earlier, we identified stakeholders that they were part of the proposal of putting together the proposal that we submitted to the UIA. And there are those among other new communities and new institutions that we made that they will take over the results of the program after it finishes. So the main this is one thing very central to our approach. The second thing it is that we imagined and we approached the Hadrian Aqueduct as a socio-material network, as not only as pipelines that we have to make to reuse again, to make usable again, but also as connection between the past and the future, and the past, the present, and the future of the city, but also between people, both in Halandri, but also beyond Halandri, because the Hadrian Aqueduct crosses 8 municipalities in the metropolitan area of Athens. And Also, we imagine the Hadrian Aqueduct that we approach as a cultural asset that for community, and we use also its cultural value to enhance the communities, the community life, but also active actors or groups in the community, so to producing a community empowerment. The reasons we do this, it is because we wanted, our aim, it was to re-embed the Hadrian Aqueduct in Halandri's everydayness. This is also how, this is also a result of how we understood the culture and cultural heritage. We neither understood it as an ancient monument that we had just to make it visible and visitable, but at the same time we understood it as we understood culture in its everyday aspect. What does it mean to change the everyday habits about water use, for example? What are the effects of this would be for the larger Halandri or for the larger Athens in their effort to counter, climate change and things like that. The second thing, it is the second aim of having this approach to engage communities. It is because, as I said, we want to increase the citizen participation and to create a new sense of belonging and caring for the city. This was also important, that to open up the caring of this cultural and natural common asset. It was important in order people to get engaged. So this led us to facilitate new processes of co-managing these common assets. And the reason why we did this, it is because we wanted to create the conditions for not only for sustainable water use as a kind of a pilot project, but also to ensure the sustainability of the project, of what we will create during the project after it finished. So very briefly, the stakeholders that were involved from the beginning, it was the Halandri's Oral History Group, it was the Rematia Association Group. The Rematia is an open stream, the only protected open stream in the wider metropolitan Athens. So Halandri had got already an active environmentalist group for the protection of its water and its green environment. And the Halandri Schools Parents Association. I will go, they were very key to create connections with the local schools, but also through them with the through the school communities, with all the citizens of Halandri. As you see, those different stakeholders, actually, they engage different age groups of Halandri, and we can say that they address, needs or interests of any age group. The oral history group that were in contact with elderly people, so we had their memory. The schools that they were involved, they were with the younger people, but also the parents and everyone in between. In the process, 2 more Halandri cultural and sports societies were engaged in the program, in the project, besides the 13 school communities. And also we reached out of Halandri to non-Halandri cultural sports and societies. What did we do regarding how the communities were engaged? First of all, so there were 2 phases. The first was like preparing, let's say, the ground somehow. So first we mapped the local needs, capacities, and aspirations. We had specific work activities on project activities on that. We utilized and empowered existing process, as I said earlier, already existing active groups in Halandri. It was very important, as Stefania said, to create use value, a new kind of elements of use value for the community, the water use, or a new square that kids can use, or a new regenerated schoolyard. And we launched the space of participation in decision making, because participation for us, it was from the inception of the co-planning, implementation, and then in order to cultivate this culture of collaboration, cooperation, and common decision making, which will remain as an inheritance of HI.D.RA.N.T to the citizen, to its of the project of the cultural hydrant to the citizens of HI.D.RA.N.T. So the oral history group was very important to unearth the community history of the Hadrian Aqueduct. People participated, the schools participated in the urban regeneration planning. We organized the Hydrant Festival to provide another awareness raising events, to use culture as an ambassador to sensitize people and making known what we are doing. And also people participated in the Hadrian Community Network co-design. I want to stay only on the school community's engagement before I go further to the water community, which was the great innovation. The schools were very important as an entrances to the wider local society, let's say, of HI.D.RA.N.T. Two things about the participatory design workshops. First of all, that we included, it was not only in the classroom, but we work with the school community, which includes students, parents, and teachers together. And the second thing, it is that what the actual workshops, the results of the workshops were integrated in the actual implementation of the project, and there were those that they will stay after in the city. For example, 80% for the first time, 8% of the urban regeneration works were planned through this co-designing process with the students. Or some water delivery and water storage equipment, like the deposits, etc., were co-designed, as you can see down in some pictures, by the student themselves, or the slogans that the water trucks will carry on to promote the change in the water use, more sustainable water use. Also, they were imagined that they were drafted by the students. And of course, the schools participated in the hydrant, in co-organizing the hydrant festival. Out of all this activity, three new institutions emerged. One, it is the local local history archive management group, which takes over the digital local history archive that was the product of cultural hydrant, and where, starting from documenting the history of Hadrian Aqueduct and the local the relationships of HI.D.RA.N.T citizens with the aqueduct or with the water. Now it expands to other themes of HI.D.RA.N.T's history. The second, it is the HI.D.RA.N.T's Hadrian Water Community, which will take over the distribution of the water with the water trucks. I will explain later about that, and also will manage the application that we create for water management use and by the community, which is the hydrohost.gr. And then we just established the platform, the HI.D.RA.N.T.gr, as a means to facilitate the participation and connection of groups and individuals that are interested about the Hadrian Aqueduct across Athens, and not only on HI.D.RA.N.T. In the prospect of upscaling the piloting program project of HI.D.RA.N.T and utilizing and making also visible again the Hadrian Aqueduct along its length. So this was as far as the participation of the project. Now it is more specific about what we about the Hadrian community of HI.D.RA.N.T, which the most interesting part it is that it will co-manage the distribution of the water, and in this way will take a stewardship on Hadrian's aqueduct, either as an historical monument, urban public space, or as a water resource. So the water will be delivered in two ways, either through direct connection to those that are very close to the pipelines, or through municipal water trucks delivery. Also, we have those that are connected directly. They're going to have new smart water meters that allow them to to regulate their water use, let's say. And of course, the water use management app, it is the HI.D.RA.N.T that I said earlier. So first of all, we needed how we managed to establish this community. Okay, first we needed to make known the provision, but also we had established a process of detecting the people, how many people are interested, what are their water needs really, or how they imagine it, what kind of use they will make of this water, and what kind of quantities and things like that. At the same time, we had to define some technical and institutional aspects of and margins about the role of the Hadrian community, because we wanted the Hadrian community to have a decisive role, not just to be a consultant or to suggest things or to make to produce only awareness raising campaigns or to publicize these things. We wanted really to have a feeling for anyone that participates in the community that if I say something and if I have the space and other people that we can make it happen and to see this happening. So because of that, we had to take the technical institutional aspects, like who the water belongs to. Okay, who the Hadrian Aqueduct belongs to. Part of it is the Ministry of Culture as an ancient monument. Part of it is to the public water operator, for example. Okay, what is the role? What kind of is the space that we can have a decisive role there? So these were processes that we struggled with the partners, first of all, within the project, in order to see what we're gonna call to give the best information and the picture in those that we are calling to participate. And then it was learning from the others. We looked at other examples of participatory citizen and citizen-led management of water systems, mainly around the world, but we focus mainly in Europe, in Paris and in Terrassa, water observatories and things like that, those examples, in order to inform our kind of approach. And of course, the people at the same time were going the participatory design workshops, I said earlier, in the schools, designing elements of the water infrastructure. But during this time, the interest that the response of the community was not enough. In reality, only when we settled down into the picture, it was clearer what are how somebody can take water and participate in the community. Only then it was that it was made more easy for the people and clear to participate. So how we managed to do that? First of all, we had an international kickoff event where we invited, as I said, representatives of from Paris and from Terrassa in Catalonia, to show that there are other examples like this, and we can do something not similar but something equivalent in HI.D.RA.N.T. Then we used again the school communities, and we had a very good round of public events in schools that since then our kind of the contact with the local people, and the people start expressing their interest, to take water and participate in the community, etc. It helped a lot that at the same time, cultural hydrants work started being visible in the community, but also being recognized internationally with participation in conferences or with awards that we won. And of course, the local interest rose up when the construction works kicked off, that everybody was talking, okay, what is going on here, blah, blah, blah. And this was a good moment that more people joined in. Something that as a conclusion or from this experience, it is that as long as good as it was to disseminate through social media, what are you doing to publicize things, what mattered really, it was to organize physical contact and personalized communication. Many people that came in our contacts, they say, or in our gatherings, in the local gatherings that we made, they said it was the first time that the municipality sent us an invitation by the post, for example, or rank us, to ask us to participate in something. So personalizing communication in the times of social media, it is really important. Then the next stage, it was to actually to shape the HI.D.RA.N.T. community. There again, according to what we had, according to the margins of the institutional margins and technical capacities that existed, we drafted a chart, let's say, of the community's role and function. And this we put it in public deliberation by organizing local meetings with the people that they were interested to use the water. Through this, also we identified new needs and solutions, and this is how we came up with the HI.D.RA.N.T. application with the prepayment practice, because we didn't want to have to organize a community that its role would be just to be, the money collector, the bill collector of its members at Alpa. We wanted to create it more, to leave it more to leave the community space for more creative activities. Okay. And also, this is how we came up that the community has to have an institutional status, to establish itself as a kind of a legal association in order to have more leverage. Yeah, and those were decided in the final consultation meeting. That all the people, many people participate, of those interested to take water or to participate in the stewardship of the HI.D.RA.N.T. aqueduct. So this, you can see the spread of the people that they want, to connect with the water. Out of those 51, they are the founding members, and the rest they will connect as soon as we get the permissions. The statute of the community will be back from us from the courts. And I finish here. Now I pass the floor to Mr. Gerorimantos to say how the water delivery will be managed by the community, in what kind of synergy.
Good morning to everyone. Give you some details and some examples what we designed and what we finally do concerning the answer to the big question: in which way you can distribute water. Firstly, we have a lot of discussion concerning if the community will be profit or not profit organization. Okay, will be for sure there was a need for a legal form, but we're not sure if it will be a form with non-profit or profit organization. If it was a profit organization, well, there are a lot of benefits concerning the legislation and what we can do, but it's something that doesn't fit to most of the beneficiaries and most of the people that was interested in. Also, at the same time, all of them were inhabitants of HI.D.RA.N.T. There was no professional, there was no companies or enterprises, something like that. They were all, the identity was the habitant. So in an early stage, we decided that we'll be in a non-profit organization. So a non-profit organization will take care of the distribution of the water. The water trunks, and also what I described has to do with the distribution with the water trunks, not with the pipelines, because the pipelines, all the things that dealing with the pipelines was easily managed by the common way that water distributed in Athens. But the water distribution with the water trunks was something very different. It's something that is nearby the public sector, but at the same time is private sector. And also you have to do with the public authority, the municipality. So as we proceed in order to take our final decisions, a lot of paradox arrived that I believe is common in every European city, in every European country, tries to do something the same. For example, the municipality will vote the water tanks and will give them to the beneficiaries that participate in the project. But this is something that cannot be done according to legislation. It is not possible a municipality, a public sector, to pay for something and give it to someone that is private sector, even a citizen. How this can be done? At the same time, the usually procurement phase in any procurement, in a public work, in a service, so in any good, gives an example about the market, as we call it, in Greece, that it will be very easy, the biggest possibilities, if we have a service concerning the water. Let's have a procurement about a service that distributes water. A discount about 70 or 80% will be something very usual. And one company that has no idea but full of papers on how this can be done will take the job and everything will finish in a few days. So for sure, and also at the same time, there was no possibility that the municipality of HI.D.RA.N.T, with her own personnel, can deal with this. In Greece and in our municipality, it's forbidden to hire any personnel from 2010, and it cannot be done, simply cannot be done. So we must find a way. At the same time, HI.D.RA.N.T municipality has a project that tries to in inclusive policies to treat a small Roma minority that existing in our city. And as a part of this our effort on this, was to make them a social enterprise concerning Greek services, plants, gardens, etc., in order to have some job, in order to be to have a skill and to can have earn money to live by their own. So we see that a combination of these things that we saw that we're dealing on will be very interesting. So what we decide, the procurement will be the procurement of the distribute of the water will be running in deviation of the main law concerning the public procurement that give us the opportunity to have a call only for social enterprises for Roma people, and this determines that we will know who may come and involve in this job, and at the same time, the Roma people and the social enterprise of Roma people has the ability under the law to give the water tanks to the beneficiaries. So we will solve also this problem. And at the same time, we have the ability to have not only the procurement, but also a contract with them in order to give them our water trucks, and hire for us drivers and workers for the distribution. This is something that was performed for first time in Greece, but can be done. And also at the same time, one of the personnel, the key personnel in the water distribution that will be hired by the social enterprise after the procurement will be driven by the water community. So the manager of the project will be hired by the social enterprise that will take the job of distribution after procurement phase by the municipality, but at the same time will be will be chosen by the water community. So anything that was involved in the construction of the water of the solidarity community of the with municipality and with HI.D.R.A.N.T will take place, but as a procurement phase with special restrictions and the ability to have a proposal for water services only for social enterprises for Roma people. Even if we have this designed and finalized it as that is something legal and can be performed, it was a very big task, a very difficult task to convince the services in the municipality that this deviation is under the law. It can be done without any further difficulties. And in many cases, it will be run smoother and faster with less bureaucracy that, as usual, we do with any kind of aspect involving private sector and public sector. So at the moment, this is finalized. This was a big victory for us because the biggest fights concerning what we're trying in cultural HI.D.RA.N.T was internal to convince ourselves that this thing can be done. And even if we had, for example, a further delay because the law for non-profit organization again changed, and at the moment we cannot apply for the acceptance of our water community because we're expecting a more another further legislation. We thought that we are near the end, and this is something that will work under our need against bureaucracy, which is something very different from democracy. Thank you.
Thank you, Kostas. Iliana, to you.
Yeah, thank you so
Whenever you
much.
want.
Okay, great. So thank you very much for both presentations. Thank you to the friends of Alandri, because Almeria would like to thank you so much also for creating this event together. It was really, I think, a good way to share the innovation delivered by both projects. There are some questions from the chat box. Some of them were already answered by our delivery partners, so thank you for that. But I think we can just keep one of them for both of you, and then to end this session with the Mentimeter word cloud and to listen from you other opinions. So I think we can just answer from Alandri and from Almeria. First of all, there is the necessity to know the budget. and I think both projects have similar budget, but I would ask to both projects to answer this question, which is because it's important to have enough budget to run these important activities. And another question for both of you is which are the most relevant obstacles faced when executed your projects? So if you can answer both of these questions, you are welcome. Thank you. Maybe shall we start with the CAMINA and then to Alandri, just for yeah, or vice versa, as you prefer.
Πολιτικός μηχανισμός είναι ένα τέτοιο για τέτοια project.
Ωραία, πες. Θες να πω το
CAMINA.
HI.D.RA.N.T, go, please.
Okay.
Thank you.
Start with the budget, Stefania.
Okay. Just quickly with the budget. So in total, the project had approximately 4 million euros for everything, and this is co-financed by the European Regional Development Fund. So 80% of this is ERDF and 20% is municipal funds. And to be able to complete the urban regeneration plans, the ERDF for that was around 1.5 million, but the city also contributes with around 2 million, and the Green Fund contributes with another 1 million. So in reality, the budget for the urban regeneration plan grew a lot during the process. And this was also the case for HI.D.RA.N.T, our partner who constructs the water network.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you so much for sharing this.
Okay, regarding the impact. Initially, there were many. First of all, it is we have one partner that from the beginning kind of makes quality checks and interviews with the citizens in HI.D.RA.N.T to see the impact and how they feel about the project. Yeah, but there were some more very tangible things regarding their responses, the response of the community about the impact. The first thing it is, and relates to why the cost rose, okay, especially regarding the construction of the pipelines. Initially, we had 70. Our aim was to have 70 people, 70 beneficiaries, and as we saw, it was almost 4 times more that of people that were interested, and there were at least 2 times more, double the number that are interested. So this is something that shows the impact that it has in the local community, and also what our partner that deals with the measuring the impact has found. It is that HI.D.RA.N.T people, the citizens of HI.D.RA.N.T, they feel very proud about the cultural hydrant. They feel, especially after the recognition of the project, and they relate to it. Also, they know more about it, and they start relating to it. So very briefly about the obstacles, it is what Mr. Gerolimatos said earlier. It is both the bureaucratic processes that we had to find smart, clever ways, to get around them, but also the everyday working routines in the municipality or in the water operator, etc., that we had to deal with this, because for most of them, they were the first time that they were called to do something like this, either to lead a UIA project or to provide a new services that I remember we're looking for Chiara. What are the provisions? What are the framework for this kind of non-potable water systems in cities in Europe, in the EU, and we couldn't find among the categories of water that are used. So we had, so I think those are the most obstacles. There were other minor ones like the pandemic, that there were delays, or how the contractors wanted to impose their own rules and not be subject to control checks regarding the rights of the workers and things like that. But yeah, I think those were the most.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you so much for sharing those. And I would like to listen also really briefly from CAMINA. Apologize because the time is running.
Gabriela,
About budget and about obstacles. Maybe Cristina about budget and Gabriela about obstacles, as you wish.
Okay. Well, the budget is similar to HI.D.RA.N.T project. It's almost roughly 5,500,000, more or less. The issue is we are 9 partners. The project is led by the city council, and each partner has a part of the budget, and depending on our responsibilities. And the same as explained our colleagues from HI.D.RA.N.T, it's 80% funded by EFDR fund and 20% by own fund. I mean, each partner contribute directly with 20%. I give the floor to my colleague Gabriela. You can follow with the obstacle.
Regarding the obstacles, I think that the main were pandemics, because pandemics delayed the start of the project, and also the rise of construction, of the price of construction materials, because it affected to the construction works of Katiuska, one of the cultural nodes. And the third one, the last but not the least, the associations, the cultural associations facing for the first time administrative procedures. So they were very overwhelmed by bureaucracy.
Yeah. Yeah, thank
Cristina,
you.
maybe you would like to add anything?
No, it's perfect. Just to summarize, the main obstacle, in my opinion, is as the public institution in Spain, I think the same in Greece, has to stick to the national public law for procurement. There are deadline or timing set, and sometimes takes more than we wish, and that has been one of the main obstacles to be able to public procurement, to publish the call and to meet deadline.
Yeah, thank you very much. And we also want to know more from all of you. So we prepare also a Mentimeter word cloud. Just one question for you. If Chiara can share the QR code, so you can enter in this QR code that maybe some of you already entered. Thank you for that. And we would like just to know from you something new that you learned today on culture and cultural heritage based on the experience of CAMINA and HI.D.RA.N.T. So if you can take your smartphone and go into the QR code, or you can also join the menti.com and use the code 57084986, and we can start to see some responses. Thank you for entering. Try just your first talk, yeah. So yes, the importance of the public role, of the public COCR.
I think it must have not been enough space to enter the whole thing. It must be co-creation.
Public co-creation, yeah, maybe, could be. Citizens, how to bring back city. Yeah, interesting approaches, civic curations, language. Okay, thank you. Yeah, we have importance of processes. We have everydayness and co-creation. Creative bureaucracy, this is interesting, thank you. Yeah, so I think in both experience, we needed to be more creative, especially when providing public procurement, so in bureaucracy. And again, civic curator says, yeah, co-creation space for civic, for making innovation in culture. We have again also cultural appropriate heritage as infrastructure, yeah, which is really relevant. Yes, our infrastructure are also our heritage, and Alandri is an important experience of it. And use value, the local values, yes. So I think that the co-creation part, the engagement of citizens, the creative bureaucracy, and thinking about everydayness, it's something that is are one of the most important learned from today. I don't know if Chiara would like to add something.
Sorry, I was muted. Well, thanks a lot. I think it's very interesting and it's also in a way confirming the approach that we were imagining in the beginning. So we were wondering, is it interesting to discuss about the relationship between culture and cultural heritage and how to be proactive and effective at local level? So many of these words in a way bring us there. For sure, the civic curators, I think it's very interesting as a concept and as a model of introducing new roles for the people and the organizations in the city, but also in a way we understood, and these last comments from the side of Almeria were in a way comforting us, that for all European cities, then the relationship with the larger frameworks of legislation, the relationship with processes that might have timing that is not compatible with the idea of bringing about an innovative action is also something that has to be kept in mind and that has to be designed within the process. Mm-hmm. So I think that this is very very interesting. We might leave the space for this poll open, as I think all of you were having the chance to take a picture to the QR code just for one more minute, and then I would suggest we can go to the end of this webinar, and I will start introducing you Eleonora from the EUI Secretariat that will tell us more about the city-to-city exchange program, which is something that is already ongoing since quite a time, but we are all very much curious of knowing more about that. So if you agree, Ileana, I would interrupt the sharing for this and leave the floor to Eleonora.
Thank you very much, Chiara. I will keep it short, as I guess we are looking forward for lunch. So thank you for staying until this moment of the presentation. Let me know if you can see my screen.
We do.
Okay, great. I will put it in sharing mode. Okay, great. I can't see you, so if there are questions or any intervention, let me know. But thank you for this opportunity for presenting city-to-city exchanges after this very inspirational webinar. And I think this is a very nice closure, like to present you this opportunity at the end of today's meeting. I will jump to the core of my presentation. Why am I saying so, and why are we presenting these today? It's because city-to-city exchanges are actually an opportunity for you to meet with other cities and exchange your experience, your concerns, your knowledge, and find together common solutions or explore solutions that have been implemented by others and that can maybe be adapted to your local context. So usually we have one city that is particularly interested in something happening in another EU city, and they get into contact and they can visit each other. So I think it's a great opportunity for you eventually if today
Excuse me,
you have
Eleonora,
been...
sorry for interrupt you, but I think we are just seeing the first slide and not in full screen.
Okay, then now?
Yeah, now we are in the third one, yes.
Okay, well, I will keep it like not in the presentation mode so you can see when I change. I'm sorry about that.
No problem.
But yeah, so this is also a great opportunity because city-to-city exchanges are pretty accessible to everyone because we have a very simple application form where you basically have to reply to some questions regarding why are you interested in this opportunity, why do you want to exchange with this specific city and on this specific challenge. So it's nothing very complicated. And then, as I said, it's a really bottom-up opportunity in the sense that we don't impose, let's say, our topics, but you can apply on any challenges interesting for you in your local context. Also, another good news is that we don't have a deadline for these activities, so you can apply whenever is more relevant for you. As European Urban Initiative, we provide support, of course, in terms of funding because we cover the expenses for traveling for the people involved from the two cities. We also offer you the possibility to work with an expert that can basically facilitate the learning process and help you organizing the activities, the agenda. So it's always there for you for any concern. And also we know that sometimes, I mean, it's very sometimes you come up with the challenge, but then it's not clear if there are cities that can be your partners. What are the cities you can learn from? Well, today you have been inspired by Jalandri and Almeria, so you already have some examples, but in the case you don't have already an hint, you can also ask us for support in finding your partners. And you can also find yourself other partners by uploading your challenges and eventually also your solutions if you are willing to exchange with others and share with others your expertise on our urban matchmaker on Portico, which is our platform. You have all the links in my presentation, so if you receive it, you can explore all these opportunities. Here I had some examples to inspire you even more, but I mean it's a bit late, so I just wanted to mention that you can access the information regarding the exchanges that have already been implemented on our website. You also have the link, so this is also for give you a bit of a better idea of what can be done with city-to-city exchanges. I think this is the most important slide for today. So I really run through my slides, but the most important message is that if in any moment you are interested in this opportunity, if I said something that, I don't know, is ringing a bell for you, please feel free to contact me or also to contact the capacity building unit functional mailbox. And please take into consideration the opportunity also to have a bilateral meeting with one of us. So if you have any questions, we can really have a conversation for 30 minutes and I can explain better what are city-to-city exchanges. Last but not least, this is not really related to city-to-city exchanges, but it's maybe still a great opportunity for you to participate and to complete this survey. It's our UI forward-looking survey. And basically, until the 12th of July, you have the possibility to have your say in the future of EU cities. So this is a survey we opened 20 days ago to have feedback from urban practitioners about what are cities needing, what are the main trends, and to share any opinions you may have for the future of cities in the EU. So this is all. I try to be as quick as possible. So I hope I manage. And as I said, if you have any questions, please let me know. I'm always here to answer.
Yeah, thank you very much also for this offer to our cities and for the participants. Thank you so much. What do you think, Chiara? We can close or we can keep lunch
if
together?
you want to stay here with us, we can have lunch together. I would just ask Eleonora to add in the chat the last links, so the one to the survey, while the other ones were already given to our audience by Re.N.T, just in order to have all the pieces together. So I would say, I would invite you all to follow the dedicated pages on the UIA website, the one dedicated to Cultural Hydrant and the one dedicated to CAMINA, because our task, Ileana's and mine, will be in the following weeks to provide a summary of what came out from today's workshop, and also presentations will be provided there, and the recording of the webinar. So if there's anything you lost, or if you were joining late or needed to go before the end of the webinar, everything will be collected there. This was an appetizer to what's going to happen at the end of September in Al-Andri. So feel invited, have a serious look at the link that Re.N.T was providing at the beginning, follow the EUI website and social media, because more information will be provided about that. Cultural Hydrant and CAMINA will be part of the conversation, but they will not be the only ones. There will be much more, and the glance will be much wider. So it will be a pleasure to have you there to continue this. It was intense, but we really had fun, and it was super interesting from my side. So thanks a lot for participating and interacting with us.
Thank you, everybody.
Thank you very much.
Have a nice day.
See you in Al-Andri.
Ciao.
See you in Al-Andri.
See you in Al-Andri.
Bye bye.
Bye-bye.
Thank you, all of you.